The Krelthar slaver ship Dominion's fist hung in orbit above the mining colony, like a promise of suffering. Captain Vexthor strutted through the holding pens, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under harsh artificial lights. Behind him, 3 juvenile Krelthar, his own offspring, clicked their mandibles in anticipation of the lesson their sire had promised them. "Watch carefully, cubs," Vexthor hissed, his translator rendering the words in a dozen languages simultaneously. "This is how you break the stubborn ones." The human hung suspended between 2 gravity posts, wrists bound by electromagnetic shackles. His name was Marcus Chen, a mining engineer who'd made the mistake of organizing a work stoppage. Blood already stained his torn shirt from previous interrogations, but his eyes remained defiant, scanning the crowd of enslaved workers forced to witness his punishment. Among them stood his wife Sarah, their 2 daughters clutching her legs, and his elderly father. The Krelthar had learned that humans possessed something most species lacked, an inconvenient attachment to their breeding groups that persisted long past reproductive necessity. The energy whip crackled to life in Vexthor's primary claw. The first strike painted a line of fire across Marcus's back. He gritted his teeth, refusing to scream. "Your kind thinks itself special," Vexthor announced, circling his victim. "You believe your solidarity makes you strong. I will teach you otherwise." The second strike came, then the third. Marcus's body convulsed, but still he made no sound beyond harsh breathing. The cubs chittered with excitement, unused to such resistance. Sarah tried to surge forward, but restraining fields held the audience in place. The youngest daughter, barely 6 years old, buried her face in her mother's side, sobbing. After the 7th strike, Vexthor paused. His smallest cub, barely adolescent by Krelthar standards, scuttled forward, emboldened by youth's cruelty. "Father, he doesn't break properly," the young Krelthar observed, prodding Marcus's leg with a foreclaw. Then, with the casual malice of inexperience, he turned toward the restrained family. "Count your family, human. They'll all go next. Perhaps their screams will be more satisfying." The words hung in the recycled air. Something changed in Marcus Chen's eyes. Not surrender, something far more dangerous. Through split lips, he began to laugh. A low, rattling sound that grew into something that made even Vexthor step back instinctively. "You just made a mistake," Marcus whispered, his voice carrying in the sudden silence. "A fatal one." "Silence!" Vexthor raised the whip again. "You know what makes humans different?" Marcus continued, his voice strengthening despite his injuries. "Every species you've conquered fights for themselves. We fight for each other. And you just threatened our cubs." The lights flickered. Vexthor's translator began receiving emergency signals from the bridge. His secondary hearts quickened as reports flooded in. 3 human warships had just dropped out of FTL drive, weapons hot, shields raised. "Impossible," Vexthor breathed. "We're in neutral space. The Galactic Council doesn't apply when you threaten human children." A new voice boomed through the ship's comm system, cold and precise. "This is Admiral Catherine Rodriguez of the Terran Defense Fleet. You have 30 seconds to release every prisoner on that ship, or we turn it into expanding plasma." Vexthor's combat implants analyzed the tactical situation with horrifying clarity. 3 heavy cruisers, each outmassing his ship by a factor of 4, railguns already tracking, missile tubes open. They weren't bluffing. "How did you find us?" he demanded. Through his pain, Marcus smiled. "Did you really think a human engineer wouldn't hide a quantum beacon in his own neural implant? It activated the moment your cub threatened my family. Every human knows you touch our kids, we come running. All of us." The eldest cub whimpered, sensing his sire's fear for the first time in his young life. 20 seconds, Admiral Rodriguez stated. "I'm not known for my patience." Vexthor's claws trembled on the whip's handle. In his 3 decades of slaving, he'd broken hundreds of species. The Krelthar Empire had conquered systems, enslaved populations, and never faced real consequences. The Galactic Council always negotiated, always compromised. But humans were new to the galactic stage. They hadn't learned to compromise yet. Worse, they'd made it abundantly clear in the brief decades since first contact that their young were inviolate, not just protected, sacred. "Release them," Vexthor ordered, his voice defeated. "Release them all." The shackles opened. Marcus collapsed into Sarah's arms, his daughters clinging to them both. Around the holding pen, hundreds of slaves from a dozen species stood frozen, unable to process their sudden freedom. 10 seconds, the Admiral's voice continued. "And Captain Vexthor?" We've already transmitted evidence of your operation to every council species. Your empire's protection is over. From now on, slavers in this sector will learn what humans are really like when you hurt our families. Through the viewports, Vexthor could see dozens more human ships appearing from FTL. Their hulls painted with an insignia he'd only heard whispered about in slaver circles, the Terran Retaliation Fleet. Not their exploration ships or their merchant marines. Their war fleet. All of this fury, this military might, this absolute commitment to violence because his youngest cub had threatened one human family. As his ship was boarded, Vexthor finally understood what the humans had been trying to tell the galaxy since their arrival. They were not prey. They were predators who'd learned to cooperate. And the one thing that activated their most primal instincts wasn't self-preservation, it was protecting their young. The smallest cub would never make that mistake again. None of them would. The lesson had been taught, but not the one Vexthor had intended.